All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another wellness webinar with Sportable. My name is Keegan Angevin. I'm a senior program coordinator here. I'm joined today by Caitlin Berry, our health and wellness outcomes manager, and then our very special guest today, Shea Hammond. I'm going to turn it over to you to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, thanks, Keegan. Hi, everyone. My name is Shea Hammond. I am a current player on the U.S. men's CP national team, which is a team for people who have suffered a stroke, have cerebral palsy, or have suffered a traumatic brain injury. So I myself suffered a stroke and have cerebral palsy. I'll touch on how that affects me and what that is later. I am also a current student at Clemson University, where I am a proud member of the first ever Clemson Paralympic Soccer Team. On top of that, I am a co-founder of the nonprofit organization CP Soccer US and coach, mentor, whatever you want to call it, there. And I know Virginia has one of the best locations that I visited once and loved my time there. So, yeah, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And honestly, I know you're super busy and so incredibly grateful for the time you're able to share with us. Shea, just for all the viewers out there, Shea and his family were instrumental in Sportable's creation of the CP soccer team, and then certainly the national CP soccer organization, which we'll continue to discuss as we go on. But touching on some of all the things that you've been doing, tell us a little bit about all the travel you've been doing recently.
Yeah, the traveling is one of my favorite parts about playing for the U.S. And I've been busy. I've been around. So in the past year or so, we've had numerous camps, both domestic and abroad. We've played games over in England at St. George's Park. We had our World Cup over in Salou, Spain. And I just recently, a few weeks ago, got back from Australia, where we played 3 international matches. We went undefeated in all 3 of those. I know you can tell by how tan and super burnt I am that I basically matched the color of my shirt coming from all the way back from Australia recently. So
Love it. Well, we'll get into some of the items about yourself and a little bit of introduction. Wanted to start off with asking where you're from and tell us a little bit about your experience growing up.
Yeah, so I'm originally from a city in New Jersey called Montclair. We're about 45 minutes from New York City, so in the north end of New Jersey. And it's a great place. I love where I'm from.
Yeah, and tell me a little bit about your experience growing up. How was it? What were some of your siblings, family life? How did all that go? And I know you've got an incredible support system with your family, so touch on that a little bit for us.
Absolutely. Without a doubt, my family is the best support system I've ever had. They always will be. My dad's been there since day one. My mom has been there since day one. And so is all my siblings as well. So I have 3 older siblings and 3 older siblings that are much older than I am, and 1 younger brother who's about 2 years away from me.
Great. And we'll continue to touch on this too. I know your family is an incredibly huge soccer family. So tell me a little bit about, the dynamic growing up with playing with siblings, your coach being an incredible force within soccer and clubs and playing, and tell me a little bit about that experience.
Yeah, it's a good question. So my dad is actually the reason that I got into soccer. My dad's been a soccer coach for, I want to say 30 plus years now. He's actually originally from England, so he brought a large number of soccer coaches over to the United States when he joined. And really, he was the reason I got into it, and he's the reason I stuck with it because he kept me playing, he kept me motivated, and really made me fall in love with the game.
Awesome. That's incredible. Tell me a little bit about what are some of the favorite things about where you grew up, favorite dining spots, favorite parks to play at, everything.
Yeah. So if you're from New Jersey, bagels are like a religion. So where I'm from, there's this bagel spot a few blocks away from my house, Hot Bagels Abroad. Oh, I can't wait till I go home and can have a proper bagel, not the whatever it is down here in South Carolina. But I would definitely say my favorite part about where I grew up was the bagel store about 3 blocks from my house.
What was your go-to bagel order?
See, this is a controversial topic in New Jersey because some people say pork roll, some people say Taylor ham, and some people are right. I say Taylor ham. I am one of the people who are right. And so I get a Taylor ham and egg on a sesame bagel with just a little bit of ketchup.
Love it. I'm glad you said that because, every time I've been to New Jersey, I think I've gotten a Taylor ham as well. So glad we match up on that. Kind of diving into some things. Tell us, a little bit about your story. I know you touched on some of the things that you're involved in, but Tell us a little bit about your story growing up from, with the disability and kind of how that story grew up. You talked about your impact from your family as well. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so a little background on myself. Like I said earlier, I had a stroke when I was born, and that gave me what's called cerebral palsy. So for those of you who don't know, cerebral palsy is a physical disability caused by the brain's inability to send the right signals to the proper muscles that they're supposed to. So for me, the stroke was on the right side of my brain, so it affects the entire left side of my body, meaning my arm, my leg, everything on my left side does not operate as it really should. It means my motor functions are affected, my flexibility, strength, everything you can think of that has to do with control on my left side is affected. So how did that affect me growing up playing soccer? It was pretty rough. I mean, I fell over a lot, and balance and coordination is not my strong suit. So it was all about my whole life growing up was just how do I deal with this on an everyday level, but also how do I deal with my disability on playing soccer on the soccer field.
Gotcha. And then can you touch, I mean, you touched a little bit on the sports aspect of things, but in general, were there any challenges that you overcame, whether it was, with family, school, things like that, made it impactful for you?
Yeah. So growing up with a disability is never easy. And I know everyone with a disability can relate. For me, I grew up not meeting anyone else with a disability around me. So I was the only one. I was the only one in my school who had cerebral palsy. So I'm walking around with a brace on my leg. I'm sticking out. I get called some names. Adults can be ignorant and ask rude questions. And it's all about overcoming that adversity of, listen, I need to explain to an older adult what's wrong with me when I'm 8 years old and hardly even know myself. On top of that, there's the actual, that's just the social side of things. That's not even talking about how everyday life is with a disability that affects walking, talking, tying my shoes, everything. So it's just doing everything a step slower and really learning how to best advocate for myself. Say, hey, I need some help tying my shoes, or hey, I can't go on this walk down the hallway right now. My leg is just too tired. So it's growing up with all these difficulties. It really taught me a lot about myself.
Great. Yeah, I really appreciate you sharing all that. I love what you're doing within the soccer community in general with raising awareness. I think, having an individual with disability working in disability sports is incredibly important, obviously, to our athletes. I think being able to see someone, with similar challenges and adversities growing up, I think is important. And then, to be able to say that you're, playing on the U.S. national team, I think it's incredible. I'm definitely a little starstruck right now. I know that's cheesy, but I think anytime you get the chance to talk with a U.S. national team player, I think that's incredible. So again, appreciate you sharing your story and continue to talk with us. And I know you touched on it a little bit. We're kind of going to dive a little bit more into it, but tell me about your specific experience playing sports as a kid. What were some of the things where, you're playing a sport that you maybe realized, there was a little bit of an adaptation that may be needed. And then certainly as you got into CP soccer and some other adaptive sports, what were some of your favorites and what was your experience there?
Yeah, it's a great question. So growing up with a disability and playing sports, the two do not always mesh together. However, the one thing my parents were told by doctors was that the best thing for him is to stay as active as you can. So as I said earlier, my dad got me into playing soccer and he kept me into playing soccer because he knew that it would be what's best for me. But the main problem that children like myself with cerebral palsy face all across the country and even the world is that around the age 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, as sports get more competitive, the kids who can't keep up get weeded out. And I was one of the kids who couldn't keep up at that age. I would fall over. I couldn't run as fast. I wasn't very good at soccer because of my disability at the time. But the one thing that kept me in it was my dad. My dad created a whole new soccer team just so that I could play. I played with my friends, and I still, in games, only played 6 minutes. But the good thing about that was that it gave me the motivation to not want to play 5 or 6 minutes. I wanted to play the whole game. So on my own, I'd have to go back and work even harder. Go to the gym more. Go to physical therapy more. Go do work on my own in the backyard. Go do work in the basement. Whatever it was to make myself stronger and more capable of being a better soccer player, that's what I knew I needed to do, and that's what I did.
Awesome. Love that. And so tell me, you touched on it a little bit, but tell me, when was that moment where, maybe you had a little bit of strife, a little bit of struggle, and you thought, hey, maybe this isn't for me. And then what was that kind of, over the hump moment where you realized, hey, there's someone that's playing this sport, or maybe it was your dad pushing you into things, that moment where it's like, hey, it kind of clicked for you. Maybe I can do this. Maybe this is something I want to continue to do.
Yeah, that's a great question. And I can think back to numerous times where I was just, I don't want to go to soccer today, or I don't want to go to physical therapy today, or, oh, I don't want to do this. I want to go to a friend's house. I want to do this. I want to do that. And my parents, they were very strict, but they were also very fair in saying, listen, this is what's going to be best for you in the long run. You need to stick with it. You are going to soccer. You are going to physical therapy. And sometimes it was taken out of my hands. It wasn't until I was older and more mature and started seeing the benefits of my own hard work that I was like, oh, wait, I can actually do something with this. And when I turned 13, I found the U.S. national team. Obviously, my parents found it for me. They saw an article about the U.S. Paralympic Soccer Team. And when I found out about the team and I first tried out, that was the moment where I went, oh, wow, okay, this is the future for me. I can be a professional soccer player for the United States, even though I have a disability, something I never thought possible. But now it's the reality.
Right. At what age did you discover that?
Yeah, so that was at 13. So I discovered
13.
the U.S. national team at 13 years old because my parents were scrolling through the BBC and they saw an article about the U.S. Paralympic Soccer Team qualifying for the Rio Paralympic Games. So they said, hey, Shea, this is an opportunity for you. You qualify. You had the stroke. You have cerebral palsy. You could make this team. So a few months later, I got invited to my first ever camp. But granted, I was the youngest at this camp by far and away. I was 13 years old going up against grown men. And this will tie into some things later about youth sports. There is no youth development pathway for children with disabilities for soccer, or at least there wasn't when I was younger. Mm-hmm. So for me, the only opportunity was when I was 13 years old to try out against 20, 30-year-old men. So I would get bullied, thrown around, not bullied in a mean way, bullied off the ball, thrown around, and just I couldn't compete because I wasn't physical enough. Yeah. But it got me in the door, and it got me the motivation, even more motivation and desire to want to be a professional athlete.
Love that. If you don't mind, give us a little bit more insight into what those training camps are like, and then certainly what those tryouts are like, because I can only imagine the type of pressure, stress, and then I've been to a few tryouts in my day, and it's sometimes it's hey, you got 2 hours to showcase your talent. Tell us a little bit about some of that experience. Going into these trials. I'm sure you felt pretty confident and had some support in you, but there's still got to be a little bit of, oh man, what is going on? Can I do this? Tell us a little bit about that experience.
Yeah, so that's a great question. My experience with the U.S. national team has grown over the years, just as I have. When I was 13 years old, my only thought was, wow, I'm here and I'm wearing USA on my chest and playing soccer. This is incredible. And fast forward 3 or 4 years, when I turned 15, 16, it went from, oh my gosh, I'm playing for the U.S. to, oh my gosh, I need to do whatever it takes to make the next camp. Mm-hmm. What can I do to make the next camp? How do I separate myself from this player? And what can I bring to the team that will get me into the next camp? And when I turned 16, that was when I really started to going to camp consistently. And because I was bringing something different, I was bringing an extra step of hard work, an extra goal, an extra run, whatever it was to separate me, to make sure that I stood out just that little bit, enough to bring me back and pay for my flights to go to wherever we were going. I made sure that that's what I was doing. And then as I got older and really worked my way into the first team as both a bench player, but also as a starter, the motivation went from, okay, these guys are trying to take my spot now. What can I do to make sure that they both excel and make the team better, but also they don't take my jersey because I want to be on that field.
Right. I love that last point you made. I think it's such a fine line between, especially when you get into the pro levels, it's such a fine line between competitiveness versus, teamwork and drive. Talk a little bit about, that little line of, hey, yes, this individual is trying to take my spot versus, the human side of it is, I want this to be a great opportunity for you. I want the team to get better. I want you to get better through it. Tell us a little bit about that aspect of the team.
Yeah, that's a good question. So the team is my family. Those guys are like my brothers. Some guys, when I first joined the team and I was 13, some of the guys could have been my dad. That's how much older they were than I was. But it's really just a unique relationship because just like any brothers, we fight, but we are all looking to get the most out of ourselves. So we all want the team to do our best. In the fall, in November, we have our major competition of the year, which is the Pan American Games. And obviously, I want to be on that plane. I want to wear that jersey. But I also want every other player on my team to be at the best level that they can be. So that way we, as a team, get the gold medal.
Sure. Yeah. Love that aspect. Thank you for that insight. And just for all our viewers out there too, we are going to have a Q&A session afterwards. So, I'm seeing some comments going in. Anna, I appreciate your comment. We're going to get to that in our Q&A session here in just a little bit, but wanted to make sure that you all understood that we were going to get to those eventually. We touched on the national level stuff. Tell us a little bit about your experience at Clemson, as a player, and then certainly as a mentor and coach as you're kind of going through that program.
Yeah, so that's a great question as well. Thank you very much. So I want to talk a little bit about Clemson for a second because I love my time here and I love this university more than anything, honestly. And if you want to go to Clemson, go to Clemson. So just a little plug there.
Put that on the banner there.
Yeah.
Love that.
Oh yeah, for sure. I think I might. Yeah. So I'm a member of the Clemson Paralympic Soccer Team. For those of you who don't know, it is the first ever collegiate scholarship program for athletes with cerebral palsy, stroke, or TBI for them to be able to have a scholarship to play soccer at a university. It is a revolutionary program. So what we do is we train every week, getting the most out of ourselves to potentially one day make the national team. We advocate and represent Clemson to the best of our ability, and I am truly proud to be a part of this program.
Tell us a little bit about the college landscape as it is. You mentioned Clemson is the first of its kind. Tell us a little bit. Since you're you're beginning in Clemson and getting involved with that program. Tell us how it's expanded college wise, and then certainly for Clemson how that program has expanded in its development.
Yeah, so the Clemson Paralympic Soccer Program has grown an unreal amount since I first even heard about it. So I first heard about the program was developed, I believe, in 2016 before I could even go to college.
Mm-hmm.
So I knew when I was young that that's where I wanted to go. And I wanted to be a Clemson Tiger. Ironically, my first ever soccer team was called the Tigers. So I really wanted to, it just kind of stuck with me. I've always been a fan of the animal. It's amazing. But back to Clemson, it has been just great to be able to represent the university and train and be a player and say, listen, I am a collegiate athlete and I have a disability. And that's not something that's ever been possible for people with disabilities like myself, unless they have made, say, a Division III or a Division II or a Division I roster, which, again, it's very, very difficult for players with disabilities to make those types of rosters.
Sure. Well, yeah, thank you. I appreciate that insight as well. Touching back on youth sports and certainly your experience as you've gone through it. Tell us first, I guess, how instrumental youth sports were for you as a youth, and then certainly as you've, grown into adult, and then, just in general, I guess, what is your opinion on youth sports and the importance of it, growing up?
Yeah. So as I mentioned earlier, youth sports are the most important thing for children with disabilities because the only way to fight cerebral palsy is by being active. There is no cure. There is no magic shot. There is no magic treatment that will cure cerebral palsy. The only thing we as people with disabilities can do is fight it off in the best way we can. And the best way for young people to do that is through youth sports. Now, as I also said, it's very difficult for people to stay with youth sports because they get more competitive. And it becomes really, really difficult to keep up with able-bodied kids when you have a disability like cerebral palsy or a stroke or a traumatic brain injury. So it's all about finding those little adaptations that you can. For me, obviously, my dad created a new team for me, but that's not available to everyone. So what's important is finding organizations like Sportable, like CP Soccer, that provide those opportunities for children with disabilities to be able to participate in sports.
100%. And that, that's why I really appreciate what you said there. I think what you're doing is incredible with not only just obviously the national team and CP Soccer, the national organization, and then certainly Clemson. I think, we talk about youth sports in general. I think the more opportunity that individuals have to engage in sport, whether it's important for a disability or not, I think that all aspects of it, whether gaining confidence, the social aspect of it, and then certainly remaining active and well, I think are incredibly important. So appreciate you mentioning that. To touch on this might be a little bit more soccer specific, and I'm sure you and your family are incredibly knowledgeable on this aspect of things. But tell us a little bit about your opinion on pay to play. I know soccer, especially at the club level. You mentioned that as it gets more competitive and individuals begin to age out. There's a pay to play model that can create some barriers for sure. Tell us a little bit about your opinion on that in general, and then certainly about how CP soccer is changing the game at the national level. Tell us a little bit about that.
Absolutely. So just to touch on pay to play just a little bit, because I want to focus more about CP soccer.
Sure.
Pay to play is just another added challenge, again, for people with disabilities. So one of the biggest problems with having a disability is that it can get expensive. My brace that I wore as a child is extremely expensive, and insurance companies won't always pay for that. So you have to think about medical bills, physical therapy costs, adaptive, whatever that you might need to purchase. That alone, and then you want to add in $1,000 for a soccer club or however much it costs. I don't know. I wasn't the one who had to pay to play, but I know that the costs can be outrageous. So it's, again, just another added barrier that we didn't like at CP Soccer.
Sure.
So what CP Soccer did was we became the first ever organization in the United States to provide free access to soccer for children with disabilities. Anyone who wants to play soccer with CP, stroke, or TBI can now in the United States, no matter where you are, whether or not you have a local location near you, or whether or not you want to play on Zoom, or you want to come to our annual summer camp up in Lake George, where I'm the head coach. So if you want to play soccer, you can come get coached by me as well, which is a lot.
Come see him. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's a great time. But yeah, so CP Soccer is changing the game because we are giving the free access to soccer. That's the biggest thing, is there are no barriers if you have ambulatory CP, stroke, or TBI. And it's one of my favorite parts because I see kids from all different backgrounds come and play. Sure. And it's just truly amazing. My favorite part of the sport.
Yeah, and as you've kind of experienced that model come to life, what has been some of the feedback, the experience? I'm sure overwhelmingly positive from families and athletes. Have there been any other feedback that you've experienced through that?
Oh, absolutely. The feedback has been incredible. So it wouldn't all be possible without the amazing fundraising efforts that we have done. And I know a lot of our individual organizations do a great job at fundraising, and our donors have been incredibly generous at helping us provide this for these kids. And the feedback has been nothing short of stellar, because just seeing how every single kid who gets involved in CP soccer progresses. There has not been a single person that I have not seen grow exponentially if they've stayed with us for say another number of months or a number of years. Just the difference in some of the kids who started with us versus where they are now. The feedback is, the proof is in the pudding. You can see it when they kick a ball. You can see it when they run down the field. You can see it in the way they carry themselves. There's certain kids who may be more shy about their disability and they don't want to show it, but they've been around CP soccer for so long and been around the other kids with disabilities for so long that they feel it's okay to show their disability a little bit more, whether that's letting their arm out of their pocket or maybe walking without having to look a certain way. It's just, like I said, the proof is in the pudding, and seeing how every single kid has grown in our program, it's amazing. It's incredible.
I love that. Yeah, I think, again, giving athletes a platform and an area to grow, at their own pace, certainly with a little bit of pushing and prodding here and there. But, again, you're touching on it there. But tell us a little bit, you talked about the lack of a development pathway previously. Tell us a little bit about, your experience growing up, maybe not seeing exactly where that lies, and then certainly now in this area where we are, where that's starting to become feasible, and you're starting to see a pathway. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So I touched upon earlier how I didn't meet anyone with cerebral palsy growing up. The first person that I met with cerebral palsy was the goalkeeper of the Paralympic team when I turned 13 at my first ever camp. It was life-changing for me to just be around other people like me. And also I noticed all these different little things that I would do that other people did that I haven't even met them before. So the way they tied their shoes, the way they walked, the way they kicked the ball a certain way, little adaptations that they found on their own, I also found on my own and also learned a few from them. So it's so important to surround yourself around people like yourself. That's another part of CP soccer that I love so much. But when it comes to the development pathway, for me, it all comes back to the inaccessibility for people with cerebral palsy in able-bodied sports. Like I said, I'm one of the lucky few who is able to stick with it for so long, but not everyone is so lucky. And now that we have a proper development pathway through CP soccer, through our U21 team with CP soccer, we now have a way for younger kids to make the national team and be seen and scouted earlier than they used to be.
It's incredible. Yeah, I love that. And, as you continue to talk about, your experience with, CP soccer nationally, what are some tips generally you have for organizations working in youth sports and working with individuals with disabilities? That could be, CP soccer, and then just at the broader landscape of things. Tell us a little bit about some tips you may have, and then, certainly any models that you've seen success in through CP soccer.
Absolutely. That's a great question. And my number one piece of advice to any organization that works with adaptive sports and what we do at CP Soccer is make it fun. Every single session that I coach, the number one thing I want to see is smiles on faces, because I know if those kids take away that they had a fun time, they'll want to come back. And if they want to come back, it'll only help them more. So to any organization that wants to get involved or is involved with youth adaptive sports, the number one thing is to make it fun. Because unfortunately, when you have a disability, things can be really discouraging. It can get frustrated super easily. It can get really frustrating really easily. So it's really important to make things fun and just give everyone the best experience that you can.
Love that. Love that. And, you just touched on it a little bit. What if a child gets frustrated or discouraged, from a family perspective? What are some tips, certainly looking back at your experience growing up and then your family's experience? What were some things that you had to overcome, and how were those conversations?
Yeah. So when children get frustrated, the number one thing to think about is, why are they getting frustrated? Is it because they can't do it? Is it because they're struggling? So it's important to take a step back, look at the situation and say, okay, what can we change? What can we adapt so that this child can thrive? And one thing that I had done for me a lot growing up was my parents would set achievable goals for me. So when I achieved one goal, the next one would present itself. So for example, one goal that I had growing up was I did not want to wear my brace. How did I achieve that? Okay, I can go to physical therapy every single day. I can work super hard in physical therapy so that one day I might not have to wear my brace if I can pull my foot up to 90 degrees. Another example would be just, okay, what's the next achievable goal to do? What's the next thing I can get? What's the next thing I can do? So that way the kids, every single goal they set, they get the satisfaction of when they complete it, and it makes it all the more enjoyable. So the number one thing that I would recommend to someone to help with a child that gets frustrated is just set an achievable goal for them.
Love that. Love that. And, again, you touched on a lot of this, but what benefits can kids get from, whether it's, practices, tournaments and camps, just kind of, with the overall fear potentially of getting into youth sports or adaptive sports, what are some of the experiences like that you can touch on?
Yeah, so I'm going to focus on two benefits, one direct towards disability and the other more social, emotional. The first one I touched upon earlier, like I said, cerebral palsy, you cannot cure it. You can only make it better through hard work and through determination and through physical therapy. It's really some of the only ways that you can make cerebral palsy easier. And through sports and through practices, through tournaments, through camps, that's just a fun, creative, amazing way to do it. Instead of going to the physical therapy office 2, 3, 4 times a week, if you go to practice all the time and you're doing the same things, you get just as much out of it. You get just as much physical activity, and you can develop even better sometimes than you would just going to physical therapy. On the other side of things, going to practices, tournaments, and camps with other kids with disabilities is that social aspect, that emotional aspect of being around people just like you. It can be exhausting at the end of the day being the only person in the room with a disability, because people may not know when you need to slow down, when you need to catch up, when you need just, hey, I need a second, I need a breather. So it's really important to interact with other people just like you, because everyone just gets it. Everyone gets why you're tired at the end of the day. Everyone gets why you may not be able to tie your shoes right now. They get why it's difficult to even put on a shirt. Putting on a shirt is one of the hardest things for some of the kids that I've met with cerebral palsy. Most people with able bodies wouldn't even think about that. So it's all about surrounding yourself with people with shared experiences, so that way you can all grow together.
Wow. Well, thank you for that insight. I appreciate that. Tell us, again, kind of touching on some of the international opportunities we talked about, all the travel you've been doing. Talk about that experience and that benefit. Some of the USA travel that you're getting some experience in, and then certainly overseas with all the competitions that you're involved in.
Absolutely. So playing soccer internationally is one of the greatest parts of my life. I get to try. I've been to all 6 continents now, and I've played soccer in, I think, 4 of them, at least for the USA. So it's been absolutely incredible being able to travel the world and represent the United States. But I want to go back to what else it represents, because it's not just about me. It's about what can I show to everyone else. Because if I, as a person with a disability, can show what is possible and what I am capable of, then it demonstrates to everyone else that it's possible. Some little kid with cerebral palsy may look at me and say, oh, he can do it, so can I. And then they'll want to do it as well. They'll want to join the national team. They'll want to go to Clemson. They'll want to play for CP soccer because of that. And that's how I try to carry myself anytime I go abroad, anytime I train domestically, anytime I'm walking down the street, just knowing what I represent and the responsibility that I carry.
I love that. Yeah. And, like you mentioned, I think, representation is crucial, for all athletes. So, I appreciate you mentioning that. To touch on some fun questions here, I guess, what was your favorite experience traveling abroad? I guess what most impactful, beautiful area that you've traveled to?
Gosh, that's so difficult. That's such a difficult question. I get that question asked probably, I would say it's top 5 questions I get asked is where's my favorite place I've traveled to?
Yeah.
And I have so many different answers because it depends on the way I look at it. It depends on if I look at natural beauty, because that could be Chile. It depends on if I look at experiences on the field, that could be Spain because of the amount of games that I've played there. I've just played the most games in Spain.
Sure.
If I'm looking at breathtaking experiences in terms of, wow, I stand there and go, oh, I'm here. That could be in Ecuador, that was literally breathtaking because Ecuador was about a mile up in the air. So my breath was literally taken from me. So, I mean, if I list all the countries that I've been to with the United States, let's see, I've been to Ecuador, Peru, Chile, Spain, England, and we just got back from Australia now. So all those countries, it's been amazing to go to every single one, but I really couldn't pick a favorite because there's a favorite for every single section. Sure.
Yeah. And they all have different impacts and certain levels, I'm sure, of your life too throughout that. So that's incredible to hear. What is, I guess, if you had to look back and pick one moment in your personal life and then your professional career, what are the, if you put 2 moments, what are the most impactful or favorite moments that you look back on, when you have a bad day, or, what is that thought or memory that pops in your head?
That's a good question. So if I think about those different moments, there's no real individual one moment in my personal life, but it leads me to a story that I would have with my dad all the time, and even my mom sometimes. So anytime that I had a really rough training day, or I had a really rough session ahead, or I knew that my body was sore, or I knew that my body was tired, and I still had another workout coming up, I would text my dad, or I would say to my dad the following words. I would say, these are the days, these are the moments, these are the actions. And what those words represented was that whatever I am doing, it is for what I am working towards. So whether or not that was the next camp that I was trying to make, or whether that was the next tournament I was trying to win, or whether it was the test I was going to take later on that day. It was, these are the days, these are the days, these are the moments, these are the actions. And I could say that will make me a champion. That will take me to the Paralympic Games. That will get me that shirt to wear with the USA crest on it. And that was something for my personal life that I carry with me every single day. Like this morning, I had a really rough training day, but I'm thinking in my head as I'm running, and I'm thinking, all right, these are the days, these are the moments, these are the actions.
Wow.
And when I go away the next time, I'll think that training day is why I do as well as I did.
Wow. I love that. That mantra is, I wrote it down, literally wrote it down as you were.
I got to trademark that, honestly.
Yeah, you should. Honestly, you should. What about in your professional life, your professional career and that experience?
So in my professional life, that's most memorable and that's been that I carry with me every single day is it changes from year to year. It is always the last moment that I have spent wearing the United States jersey, where I think, okay, this will not be my last time wearing this jersey. So when I made my first debut, I was 15 years old in Santiago, Chile, on a cold, dark, rainy night. Oh, gosh, it was just like something out of a movie. And I only played about 90 seconds in that game. And I had traveled thousands of miles just to play 90 seconds. And it was one of the happiest days of my life. But I'm thinking, as I'm on the plane back, I'm thinking, yeah, I only played 90 seconds, but next time it'll be more. Next time I'll do more. Next time I'll do this. Next time I'll do that. And then when that next time came, a year later, when I was playing in Ecuador, I played only a half hour the entire tournament. But I'm thinking, okay, I'm going to work even harder. And next tournament, I'm going to do more. I'm going to do more. And every single time I went away and every single time I went to a tournament, it was always, okay, how can I be better? How can I do more for the team? And how can I give absolutely everything for this goal?
Oh, I love that mentality. I think that's incredible. And, I think I know the answer to this question because we've talked on it quite a bit. But if you had to describe who's your biggest role model in your personal life?
My dad, by far and away, my dad. I mean, I love my mom more than anything. Sure. She's the one who drove me to physical therapy. She's the one that drove me to the gym. I always have to give her flowers no matter what. But my biggest role model was definitely my dad growing up.
Gotcha. Awesome. What were some of the, you touched on them countlessly throughout, but, what are some of the best experiences, that make you say that?
I'm going to get emotional just thinking back on all the time that we spent on the soccer field, near the soccer field, all that stuff. I mean, I said I flew thousands of miles to Chile just to play 90 seconds. Well, my dad flew just as far just to watch me play 90 seconds. Yeah. And the smile on his face was as big as the smile on my face. He couldn't have been more proud of me, and I couldn't have been happier that he was there. And he has been to almost every single one of my games in person, and he always makes an effort to at least try to get to one of my games in person. So definitely every single time I come off the field wearing the red, white, and blue, just seeing him and knowing that how much he cares and how proud of me he is just, it's a lot.
That's awesome. Yeah, I can tell how much it means to you. So yeah, I appreciate you sharing that. And then in your professional career, if you had to pinpoint one person, you could do that. If there's, I'm sure there's a variety of different impacts that you've had, but what is one or a couple people that have had the most impact on your professional career, other than your dad, of course?
That's a good question. And this, again, ties back into representation, because when I was growing up, there was no people with disabilities that I had easy access to even know they existed. Had I known that the Paralympic team existed when I was 5, 6, 7 years old, I would have had those role models of the guys on the team, but I just didn't have that. So it made it really difficult for me just to really not have anyone that I could look at and say, hey, I want to be just like him. And again, that ties back into how I try to carry myself, because I know what I didn't have, I want to try and be for all the kids with cerebral palsy growing up. But who's been a big impact for me on the national team has been my older teammates. I said I joined the team when I was 13 years old, and I have so many guys to thank for mentoring me and putting up with me as I went through puberty, went through being a teenager, and I'm now in college. I mean, just the way they helped me grow and learn about the game, but also mature as a human being, I can never repay them. All of my teammates, my coaches, all of them.
Awesome. I appreciate you so much for doing all this. I know you're super busy in all your time. I've got just a couple rapid fire questions for Shea, and then we'll get into some of the Q&A, and start to wrap some of this up. So I see some of the comments are going in. If you can think of anything, any questions or comments or just thoughts that you have, feel free to throw them in the comment section. We'll get them in, get that to you in just a little bit. Got some rapid fire questions for you. Ready?
For sure.
Okay. Burgers or hot dogs?
Oh, good question. Hot dogs, if it's a game day. So if I'm in Clemson, in Death Valley, has to be a hot dog. But
Okay.
pretty much any other time, burger.
Burgers. Okay. Favorite type of music?
I've lived in the South for about 3 years now. I'm on a big country kick right now.
Okay. Favorite artist?
That's country, Zach Bryan.
Okay. Describe your fit in one word.
My fit, like my clothes.
Mm-hmm.
I get called a frat boy a lot, but I'm not in a frat. So I don't know what that means. I just wear athletic clothing, but
Okay.
I guess that's my fit.
Okay. And then what is your hidden talent other than, of course, being a professional soccer athlete?
My hidden talent. I quote movies all the time, and I can do it in the most subtle way that nobody will know what movie I'm talking about or what quote it is. So I'll just memorize random movie quotes.
Gotcha. Last meal on earth, if you had to pick.
My mom's steak sandwich on garlic bread.
That's a great answer. Favorite movie of all time?
Star Wars, Empire Strikes Back.
Wow. Underrated for sure. And then I think I know the answer to this one as well, but animal that describes you best. There it is. I figured. There it is.
Clemson,
All right.
Tigers.
Shea, well, I really appreciate it. We're going to get into some of the Q&As. Again, if you have any questions that you're willing to give, feel free to throw those in the comment. Anna asks, do you follow any professional soccer teams, and what are your favorites?
Hi, Anna. Congratulations on the Carabao Cup win yesterday. Must have been nice to win a trophy. My favorite team is the current top of the table in the English Premier League, Arsenal Football Club.
I love you. I love that. That's awesome. And then Forrest, we touched on it a little bit. What do you think the future holds for CP soccer domestically here in the U.S.? And then what are some of your aspirations and hopes to see that you wish to see take shape around CP soccer in our country?
That's a good question. That's a really good question, Forrest. So what I think we hold domestically and what we want to do domestically are very similar. We want to keep growing, we want to keep expanding, and we want to help as many kids as we possibly can. That's one of my personal goals, and that's one of my personal motivations, is that I want to help as many people with cerebral palsy as I possibly can, because I've seen what we've done work so well. So I think we will grow to every state at some point in my lifetime. I mean, I know we'll get a team in Alaska at some point, and I want to help kids all across the country and then compete internationally around the world on a regular basis.
Love that. Taylor asks, do you have any specific goals for the year? This was kind of when we were going over goal setting and things like that.
For sure. So my number one goal for this year is definitely to win the Pan American Games with the United States. Obviously, I think we as a team have a very strong team this year. We have a very young team this year. And I have my bronze medal over there from when we won bronze back in 2019. And I think this year we really want that gold medal. I know this year we really want that gold medal. And I think this year we can really make a strong push to win it. So
awesome. And Michelle mentions she's here with Brandon, wondering if a CP soccer tournament in the U.S. were in the plans. Maybe find a middle state where all CP soccer teams can travel to.
Yes. Hi, Michelle. Good to see you again. Hi, Brandon. Hope you're well. So we have a tournament on the books already up at our annual summer camp. So every year we have an annual summer camp up in Lake George where we invite kids that are part of CP soccer age 10 and up to sleep away and participate in. Obviously, it's different. This is separate from our normal weekly training sessions at locations around the country. This one is more of a summer camp, so it's something that we can provide scholarship for and things like that. But this year, we are also having a tournament for both our younger athletes, but also some of our older athletes, where we are inviting kids from across the country and also across the world. I don't know off the top of my head what countries are coming, but we do have a list. We do have a number of countries that are joining us for a tournament up in Lake George because we have an awesome facility up there at Golden Goal.
Awesome. Forrest asks again, what was your most memorable goal or game played in? Can be for the U.S. national team or outside.
Oh, that's so difficult. Because the thing is, I remember every single goal I've scored for the United States like it's the back of my hand. I mean, I will shamelessly rewatch them on the way to games to hype myself up to say, listen, this is what I know I can do. Mm-hmm. So just go and do it in the next game. Most memorable one. My favorite. Here, I'll do this. I'll give you my favorite game that I've played in. My favorite game that I've played in would be my favorite game that I've played in so far would be the World Cup quarterfinal against the Netherlands this past summer. I was carrying some severe injuries going into the World Cup. It was a doubt if I would even be able to play, and I came on with the last 15 minutes in the World Cup quarterfinal against the Netherlands, and I got an assist to complete the hat trick for my friend and teammate Jonah, who had an amazing performance that game. And it was really what sealed off our win, our first ever World Cup quarterfinal win to take us to the semis against where we'd play against and unfortunately lose to Ukraine, the number one team in the world. But winning that game was just a monumental step for our program. We had finally gotten over the hump of getting past the quarterfinals. And it was just an absolute great moment to be able to complete my friend's hat trick and to send us through to the next round.
Definitely.
When it comes to, that's definitely one memory that sticks out to me because I just think about everything that we've overcome as a program, everything that I overcame individually that year. Last year was a very difficult year for me physically because I tore both my hamstrings. I was playing at the World Cup on maybe half a hamstring. It was pretty rough, but no, that's one game that I always think about when it comes to both myself, but also the program in general.
Yeah. Anna mentioned that, the left-footed goal in Australia was one of the favorites too. Michelle again asked, if Brandon would like to know how many players are on the US PNT.
Yeah, so it's different for camps versus tournaments. So for international tournaments, we are only allowed to bring 14 players because for CP soccer, it is 7-a-side. So for a U.S. men's international tournament, we are only allowed to bring 14 players for the United States. But when it comes to a camp, we typically bring, it can be up to 20. It could be a little bit more than 20. Depends on the budget, depends on availability. It depends on where the camp is, depends on when the camp is, and because some people have work, some people can't make it. So it varies between tournament versus camp.
Gotcha. Thank you. And then how do you get invited to the ID camp? Believe you were 13 at the time?
Yeah. So the landscape of the U.S. national team is very different than how it was when I was 13. When I was 13, my dad emailed Coach Stuart Sharp and said, hey, my son has cerebral palsy. Here's a little bit about him. And Coach Sharp replied with, send me a video of him doing some soccer skills and maybe we'll invite him out. That was that. Now, CP soccer is the best outlet for being noticed by the national team. If you stand out at CP soccer, then our coaching staff or people involved in the program can recommend you to the national team head coach. And I know my head coach, Stuart Sharp, is always asking myself and my dad, hey, who's doing well? Who's getting older and who's doing well? And now, unfortunately, I don't see many other 13-year-olds trying out for the United States anymore. I definitely think it's going to go CP soccer first and then US. But when you get around to age 16, 17, 18, and you can really compete with the big boys, and if you are good enough, then we will talk about you and we will put your name in the hat to potentially make a camp.
Awesome. And then, there's some comments going on about the summer camp. If you could just briefly describe, the CP summer camp and kind of what that entails. And then, another question, playing at a tournament at your camp, will there be a tryout for kids to be on the U.S. team to play at that tournament?
Yeah, so that ties back into the last question of it's more being involved in CP soccer will get you noticed on the national team, because that's the best way to do it nowadays. There won't be too many other tryouts for the United States for children under the age of 18. It'll be more being involved in CP soccer, and if you stand out there, then we will talk to my head coach, or my dad will talk to my head coach and say, hey, listen, I have this kid from here. He's 18 years old, or he's 17 years old. I think he's one you should look out for. I think he's one you should speak to, or something like that. But when it comes to the tournament at the camp, it's summer camp. It's the best. Oh, there's a little bit of an echo. Oh, all good now. So it's the best. I know I saw one of the comments, Warren, how you doing? It's the absolute best. It's such a fun time. It's not just competitive all-out soccer. It is just social. It is training twice a day. It is fun in the sun. It is summer camp. It's sleepaway camp, but the best part about it is you're surrounded by other people with cerebral palsy. And it's one of the few places I go to where the people with disabilities completely outnumber the people with able bodies. So the only constituent there is that you have to be at least 10 years old for liability reasons. So it's just 10 years old and over, and you can come to summer camp. And at that summer camp, it's also a tournament as well. So it's just a little bit of both. And hey, if you don't want to play in the tournament, no worries. Cheer us on. Come stand on the sidelines and cheer us on. Be a coach, be a manager, be a cheerleader, whatever it is. It's however much you want to put in to the program.
Awesome. Well, while we're maybe getting a few other questions, we might begin to close things up. But just for the viewers, again, to touch a little bit on our program, so Sportable's CP soccer program is in the Virginia chapter of CP Soccer, the national organization. And so we just put up a little banner there. If you're interested in any of those national camps, please check out cpsoccer.us. And then certainly for us, shameless plug, we're going to be starting our CP soccer spring season March 12th. And, like I mentioned, Shea and his family were incredibly foundational in starting up that program and helping us out and building out the platform through that. So we're incredibly excited. We've got some incredible coaches, and if you're around for the winter clinics, very, very similar style, and talking about some interesting aspects. A lot of you mentioned looking at getting into more tournaments and things like that, and we certainly want to be able to provide that. And so that is a goal for us, as well as it is for the national organization through there too. So we'll wait a couple, just a few more seconds just to see if there are any final questions. But I'll kind of turn it over to Shea. Do you have any other thoughts or comments to kind of close things out?
No, I mean, I heard you did your own shameless plug, so I'll do.
Please.
So I'll do my own. I mean, if you want to follow me on Instagram, my Instagram is my name, Shea_Hammond. I am trying to be active on TikTok. You don't have to follow me there, but that's just my name, Shea Hammond. Twitter, I do my best to retweet our news and stuff like that when it comes to our updates with CP Soccer and all that. But yeah, I mean, just if you want to be involved in CP Soccer, feel free to reach out to me. The Sportable is a great organization. CP Soccer, I love it with all my heart, so highly recommend that.
Thank you. We have one final question coming in from Michelle. Can parents watch the tournament at the camp?
Yes, I believe so. Like I said, it's pretty far away, but there are hotels nearby. But yeah, no, the tournament will be watchable will be able to be watched by parents. I would definitely go to the website for more information on that, or reach out to one of the other staff of CP Soccer who might be better to answer that question. So I'll direct you to our website or our questions over there.
Awesome. Well, Shea, thank you again. We know how busy you are and how impactful you are around the industry. And so again, thank you so much for your time. Appreciate you. And then, all the viewers, thank you for tuning in, and certainly give Shea a follow. Like Forrest mentioned, is a good follow. I heard a TikTok went viral today too. So, that's a good listen as well. So certainly thank you again, Shea. I appreciate it. And we'll touch base soon.
For sure. Well, thank you so much for having me. It's been a great time, and really looking forward to seeing how the CP Soccer clinics and the rest of Sportable events are in the future.
Awesome.